Position training. This is lesson number 23. This is all about submodality intervention. I just will start at the outset and say this really is all about behavioural change. A submodality, what is a submodality? A modality is a sense. So a submodality is a hierarchical logical typing of a category within a sense. That's called a submodality. So a sense can be either, feelings or hearing or seeing, and so a submodality in hearing is sound is the sense, and a submodality of hearing can be rhythm or pitch or intonation or the changing of volume of shifts. Someone can have been a very kinesthetic person that you're connecting with, and they have pauses between things that they say, and they speak a little bit deeper. They might only ever have operated more in that sense. But the more that it's possible for a person to exit from that kinesthetic sense of how they're speaking in auditory, in their feelings, to be more auditory, which is more medium ranged, and then to perhaps even pick the voice up a tiny little bit and speak a tiny bit quicker, and that causes people to become more into vision. So a submodality of the auditory, it could be the rhythm that we change, the cadence, the pitch, the intonation. All of these are qualities, and these are submodalities. So a submodality intervention is where some piece of behavioural change work occurs, and it causes a person to have some desired outcome. So, for instance, things I often recommend to people, gosh, would it be lovely to have a psychological blindness for something which you'd love to, and your eyes just skip over that, where they might have, because I've always been drawn to that when you went into the supermarket or something, but now it's possible for your eyes to completely just skip over that, and you have a bit of a psychological blindness for that. It could be something that can have been controlling you in some ways, and it might be wise just to be aware how much your eyesight, perhaps, of having visualised that in the past, can have been a factor. And as you now have a psychological blindness for this more so, you no longer are, you more have your own mind as a result, and you have a greater choice of things. So things which you might really enjoy to actually have more of in your life, and you want to really cause these to be more appealing. I might ask somebody, what's something that you really love? And the person says, oh God, I really love pistachios. I say, oh, and can you see that in your mind? The person says, oh yes. And say, well, how do you see them? And the person says, oh well, I sort of see a dish, and it's sort of like here, sort of in the visual field here. It's not there, it's not up there, it's actually here. That's interesting because it's not behind the person, but it is somewhere in the mind. And so then I might ask them, how do you make those pistachios, which are already fairly appealing, more appealing? The person says, well, I don't know. I said, well, what happens if we adjust this around in what you're saying? Does it make it more appealing if it's crisper, more crisp than it is? The person says, yes. And I says, does it make it more appealing that they sort of just like maybe vibrate and jump a bit more towards you in the visual field? The person says, yes. I said, well, what will happen if this inside your mind's eye sort of fades and gets like softer and lighter? The person says, oh, no, that doesn't work. So now how these submodalities, is it we turn the brightness up or we turn the brightness down, we move something toward or we move something away. This is called a submodality intervention. And I want you to know that you and I can have done these sorts of things inside our mind to actually enhance the value of something, or perhaps possibly to diminish the effect of something. So when someone comes to you as a Phoenix vision, it's possible to have such a deep insight that in your conversation with people, you are actually working with little things on this level, and the person just, at the end of the session, they feel good, but lots of things actually have taken place. There's been communication occurring more to the other than conscious mind as to what someone will do after this session. And then there's been some instructions that are given during the session, which then the moment the person gets up from the chair and they go about their life, that these instructions become carried out. So we're talking about submodality interventions, and I'm giving you a little bit of an insight into how the brain works. And we've said that somebody who had a little bit of a compulsion to have had pistachios, and we found out that when they vibrate and they jump a little further forward toward the person, they get a little bit bigger and they come closer to the person's visual field. They become a bit crisper, and then they could become a bit brighter usually. And these things usually, if you would love an apple to be more appealing, then have that jump out now and be left in your visual field as shining and maybe glistening with a little bit of water on it or something. If you want that to even be enhanced more, imagine someone just cracking into that apple with their teeth and crack, and then and a juicy sort of a crunch, sort of. And you could put a juicy crunch in there too. So we're working with these modality and then these sub-modalities within this. So I might ask someone to visualize sort of some memory or something, and I might ask them, what colour are they in this memory? And the person says, well, I'm a bit white. Now, you know, that's a possibility, that's a submodality of fear. When somebody's white-knuckled and they're feeling like a little, or you know, not much blood flowing. So that we might change that. We might ask, well, you know, is that a good feeling? Person says, oh, no, not really. So, well, would you like a good feeling? Says, yes. Well, how's pink? Oh, gee, that's better. That's a much better colour. So, changing the submodality of our experience causes us to have a conditioned response that can be to our outcome, or can be to our advantage, or it can have been something other. We're working with someone who it hasn't been easy for them to get on an elevator. It could have been anything, but let's just use that as an example. And I asked the person, well, can you remember the last time actually you were about to get on an elevator but it sort of didn't work out? The person says, yeah, absolutely. And I said, can you see yourself? The person says, yes. I said, can you describe yourself? And the person says, well, I'm a bit pensive and I'm just sort of not going in the elevator. I said, well, what else do you notice? And they might have to really ask the person more, so, well, the shoulder's nice and relaxed. The person says, well, no, not really. I said, well, is the tummy nice and relaxed? The person says, no, the tummy's not nice, relaxed. Well, are the hands relaxed? The person says, no, the hands are not relaxed. Well, what about the face? The face relaxed? The person says, no, the face is not relaxed. I said, well, maybe that's the place to start. Let's see now. Can you see yourself in front of the elevator? The person says, yes. I said, now, adjust these things as you look at yourself. And so, the person starts to adjust all of these things. And then when you have it just right, you'll allow your hand to raise. So the hand raises in a moment, indicating that the person's done this work. And then you'll say, okay, so now see yourself in this resourceful state and see yourself getting into the elevator. The person sees themselves. So then now drift into your body as you're seeing yourself getting on the elevator. So the person drifts into their body as they're getting inside the elevator. These are the very kinds of things that one can have done with their own mind before doing something to actually have your own submodality intervention. We have to take the body through the new experience for the mind to conceive new possibility. And as the body has this new experience wired through movement, the mind can conceive new possibility. So why we're talking about this today is because some persons can have a condition-paired response to Brazil nuts, for instance. They ate some Brazil nuts in years gone by, and they got a little bit of a less than a comfortable condition because they had the enzyme inhibitors were all in those nuts, and they weren't really live food. It wasn't, prepared in a way that would be easy to digest. So the person then, whenever they had a Brazil nut, they got this condition-paired response. And they did not want that. They wanted to be without that, but they might not have any idea, actually. But you, as a practitioner, you can know that persons can have a condition-paired response to something which could be unconditioned in an instant if the person was wanting that. So I might ask the person, how did they get this? And I'll find out what they've done inside their brain to actually have got this situation, So I shared a story which is in these lessons that we have of a fellow who had seizures. When I asked him what caused him to get stuck, after he was sort of very relaxed, he went up to the top left, went up to the top left, then went sort of down over here, and then he sort of went to the side like this and just shrugged the shoulders and said, I don't know. But what, as a practitioner, might you know about the senses that the person used?
Visual recall.
Visual recall, exactly, right? Excellent. And then they went down into kinesthetic feelings, and then they heard a memory, internal memory. So we can know this by having observed the movements that's happening on the outside of the body. So though the person was really unaware of how this occurred, they gave us the sensory-specific strategy that was driving the sequence. And so as an astute person could ask, what it was that person was seeing, because what did you see first? The person went, it's visual memory. So what did you see? What are you seeing? And then the person cottons onto a window. They're just about having a bit of a seizure as a result of the picture of the window. It was a reminder, causing the brain to have a memory of having had a seizure in the past. Cutting this story short, because it's everyone sort of knows a little bit about the story. The submodality intervention, we noticed that was a visual, kinesthetic, auditory sequence. And so now we're going to build a new sequence in there. That visual memory is going to flip into another visual memory, and then from the visual memory it will flip into a kinesthetic feeling about this visual memory, and then the person will hear themselves say something, which is also resourceful. So providing the resource state is large enough, you can collapse any stuck state into this resource state. But the resource state has to be large enough neurologically to collapse any stuck state. So what we did was we built a beautiful picture in there. It was very resourceful, and so at 1,000th of a second, eventually, of course, like an oscilloscope, the picture that was causing this person less than a comfortable condition was flipped into this other resourceful picture that caused this person to have a more resourceful sequence of things. And so we built this very slow initially, and then we slowly sped it up until it happened at about 1,000th of a second. So it didn't give this person's brain any time to think about this. It would be just an instantaneous sort of thing, and this person has never had a seizure since. One day, this very famous psychologist who deals a lot with death and dying, and called me and said that there was this client that had burnt several therapists out, and had come to this person, and also this person had felt burnt out, and they didn't know quite what to do. And then they had called me and asked me, would there be something possibly I could do? And I said, absolutely. Anyway, they were thought, wow, really? You mean this person's burnt several therapists have just burnt them out? And I said, absolutely. So they're quite thrilled. they thought, oh well, we'll send this person, we'll see what Dr. Jubb says about this. Anyway, they asked me, well, what do we say that you do? And I said, short-term hypnotherapy. And they said, oh, all right. And how many sessions? I said, oh, maybe 2 or 3 at the most. They went, 2 or 3? Because they were used to like at least 70 or 80 or 100 sessions or something, you know, and be analysing, you know, all this sort of thing, you know. And so they were just, and anyway, when this person heard about this, they were just delighted. They thought, oh my God, really? Only 2 or 3 sessions? And then they thought, this is very interesting. Short-term hypnotherapy, they thought to themselves, Anyway, so when this person came, you know, after the first 10 minutes, I just observed everything that was needed to observe. First of all, I noticed the person was very in a kinesthetic state, and they were not able to exit into auditory vision. Second, much of the things that I had said that was about caring for this person was not being perceived as caring. And so this person had an enormous outpouring of energy with hardly any energy patterns coming in at all. It was just like enormous amount of dialogue and just like, you know. Anyway, I said, oh gee. I said, do you remember having been this way? You know, the person says, yes. And I said, well, have you always been this way? And the person said, no. And I said, oh, no. The person said, yes. I said, well, how long ago was that? And they said, so about 5. So anyway, I said, so in a nice relaxed state, I had the person go back and remember sort of what it was that sort of happened, that, you know, was a memory that had created this sort of state. And this person went back and it's a she. She has a memory of, she can just vaguely see someone's shoulder like this. It's like as if she's peering over this person's shoulder and she's being carried away from her father. And inquiring a little more about this, she's 5 years of age. She's about to have her tonsils out. She'd been taken to the hospital and the physicians there said, oh my God, you've got a major case of this and that, you'll have to have your tonsils out, you know, have to book you to hospital and everything like that. And now, she didn't want this at all, you know. And so she was left with a memory of being carried away from her dad who had taken her to the hospital. And she just had this sort of feeling of being carried away, and it was very traumatic, or everything that sort of occurred after that. And then she really sort of threw a tantrum and the whole thing wasn't so good. But afterward, she always sort of had this state. Anyway, so I asked her, I said, okay, now you'll hear my embedded commands through unconscious mind. I said, okay, all right. Would that be all right that we could stop this behaviour today? Because no one actually communicated with unconscious mind like this, you know. And I see her unconscious mind sort of nodding her head. Yes. And I said, okay, so go to the very end of this behaviour. So I'm betting command, end this behaviour. I said, go to the very end of this behaviour. I said, can you see a little bit of a movie of how that all took place? The person said, yes. I said, well, go to the very end, so that this is ended now. The person says, okay. So they go to the end of the sequence, right? But I'm embedding commands to the unconscious mind to end this, right? So I said, go to the end of this sequence now. Embedding the commands to end the sequence now. And I said, start there. I said, and now what I'd like to do is to run this sequence backward until you're left at the beginning. And you're going to finish the scene left being in the beginning. Will that be okay? The person is nodding their head. I said, and so now I'm expeding that. I'm just going through this so you'll get a little bit of an idea of what's possible. So this person goes to the end of the sequence and runs it backward to the place where the whole beginning is, where nothing has occurred. I said, okay. And she said, can you hear the embedded commands I'm giving to the person's subconscious mind? Nothing has occurred. And I said, okay. And so I said, all right. So now, what I'll have you do is start at the very end, where this sequence is finished, and you're going to run this sequence backward to the beginning, where nothing has happened. Okay? Because he says, oh yeah, absolutely, all right, okay. You know, so, and I said, oh, by the way, just so I can kind of see how fast you're doing it, I'm going to make sure that you blink your eyes and you're going to blank the screen out after you're left with nothing. Is that okay? The person says, okay. So then it takes a little while and all of a sudden she goes, like that. I said, all right, how about go back to that again? So, you know, and I take her through this, and now we start to speed up. I said, imagine you've got a little bit of the speed switch there, and you're going to turn the speed up a little bit, like faster. I said, all right, now faster. I said, faster, faster, and it was going kind of quite rapidly like this. So then she came out of this sort of like a somnambulistic trance that we did this work in. She went to use the bathroom. She came back and she said, I don't know, she said. Something feels different. She said, I don't know. She said, something feels different, you know. She said, I don't know what's going on. She said, but she said, I don't know. I feel better. She thought to herself, you know. And she said this to me. Anyway, so we finished the session there. She had 2 more sessions afterward, right? She went on and became a psychotherapist. All right. And she wrote to me when she graduated from the New School of Social Work. She went and did a Master's of Social Work. And so she wrote to me, you know, a beautiful card. And I just remembering maybe a little bit of the symbology of the outside of it. It was like there was just something that was small, but it had started from something huge, you know. And it was like a card about this, but her words were just, oh my God, I don't know quite what you did that day, she said, but whatever you did, I know that this has really helped me enormously, and I want you to know that I've gone ahead and I got my Masters of Social Work and everything, and that I've really, you know, my family life and everything has been really, really excellent ever since, you know. I guess it was interesting because she, it was enough for her to have got whatever this was, but she didn't know quite what it sort of was that occurred. And I asked her to have an ability to forget. And I embedded the command for her to forget. So she would no longer really have any memory much of this, and would just be like 5 minutes has passed by, yet some time has passed by, you know. So she really was in this altered state. And so when she came out of somnambulistic trance, everything was sped up, and, you know, all this, what the work that we did was paced more to the unconscious mind. So now, let's examine this last example for a second. The pattern that she was left with was a pattern that continuously, things were always sort of flowing out and away, and she had a major imprint of an experience of energy flowing out and away. And when we reversed this sequence, what was happened? Say it again. Coming toward. So the whole pattern of the undoing of it was a major pattern of her being carried back toward her father, and then being left in Dad's arms, you know, where she was, you know.
Like rewinding a video.
Yes, right. So our brain can have, as the dreamer can have created a scenario, can have naturally, you know, could have fallen out of a hot air balloon and floated through the air and finally ended up in a river raft. and then travelled down this river after or something, you know, to a place where there was a cabin where eventually you cut your nails and you know, your fingernails, or you threw them out the west window of the house. So this is all very interesting and does mean something very specific. Our dreaming, you don't necessarily have to be conscious of what structure of the brain has been, what could we say, has been normalised. So there can be patterns that was still not complete that our dreamer completes, so that it tidies that up, so that there's no longer sort of some loose sort of end in the mind, and it will do it sort of very metaphorically. So one day the flying frog, who's quite a medicine person in the West and works with altered states, and this person's name is Flying Frog, and the Flying Frog has a son called Loudhawk, and Loudhawk is a bit overweight. Anyway, Flying Frog came to me one day and said to me, "Oh, Loudhawk's a bit overweight, and is there something actually that could do? You know, there's 2, 3, 4 levels away." And I said, "Absolutely." And he said, "Well, what's that?" And I said, "Well, let's find a rock." So we looked around. I said, "Well, there needs to be." I said, "How many pounds does Loudhawk have to lift?" He said, "Oh, well, 30 pounds." I said, 30 pounds? My God, let's see if we can find a rock that's 30 pounds. So we searched and searched, and finally we find this rock. Have you lifted 30 pounds? Have you lifted 30 pounds? Pretty heavy, right? So we get this heavy rock. It's 30 pounds. Anyway, so we bring this over to where we're sitting and just sort of put it to the side in the bush, you know. Anyway, Loudhawk comes over, and we're just talking away and everything, and then Flying Frog is talking about weight loss and this sort of a thing, and Loudhawk is very interested, and he's like, "Oh my God, well that's something for me." He said, I mean, I'd love to lose some weight, and we said, "Well, how much weight?" He said, "Oh, well, you know, 30 pounds?" I said, 30 pounds. And then Flying Frog said, 30 pounds. And then Loudhawk said, "Yeah, 30 pounds. I said, "Oh, wow." So, and then I said, "Well, let's have a look at this." And I pointed Loudhawk to this rock. I said, "Gee, Loudhawk," I said, "that's about 30 pounds. And Loudhawk said, "Oh." I said, "Well, let's go ahead and pick this up, you know, and feel this." So he picks this up. He goes, "Oh, geez," he said, "wow," he said, that's pretty heavy." I said, "Can you imagine actually carrying that up 10 flights of stairs?" He said, "Absolutely no." I said, "Well, how about actually carrying that back down the riverbed?" He said, "Oh, maybe." I said, "Gee," I said, "well, you've been just carrying 30 pounds. I said, "It's just like a suitcase, and you've just been carrying that around with you everywhere." I said, "It's not doing anything. I've just been carrying it around everywhere." I said, "You know." But yeah. I said, "Well, how about feeling like you'd love to get rid of this?" Anyway, so he picks the rock up and carries the rock, and we frame things in a way for him finally, because he's carrying the rock and we haven't given him any instructions to let the rock go, you know. But then we just say, "Well, you know, would you love to let this 30 pounds go?" And then Loudhawk's standing there with the rock. He's going, "Of course." But this question is like about the 30 pounds. And he's like maybe wondering a little bit about this. It's getting very heavy, you know. I said, "Well, has this got heavy enough for you? You know, has it really got heavy enough for you? Are you really at the point now that it's heavy enough? Or do you have to have a bit more of a feeling like, oh, you'll have such relief when you let this go?" And of course there's a little bit of like a double message. He's starting to think, is this about this rock? Is this about this rock? And I said, when you're ready to let this go, this 30 pounds, it will begin. You know, finally, you let this go, this program will begin. So then finally he got the message, you know, and dropped the rock. Things can be put into something else. for creating behavioural change. It was interesting because I went into a store and I noticed that one of the girls that was working behind the counter had a sort of a little argument or something, and I just saw the tail end of something, you know. Anyway, I could see that this person was a bit unnerved by whatever that was. They were a bit unnerved. And her friend there had witnessed everything, and when the other person had gone, I could notice that I see her friend is observing the person that was sort of feeling not so well. And then I saw them go into the back room, and they came out, you know, and this person was sort of feeling not so well. And then this other person went over and starts blowing this balloon, you know. And there's, of course, now this is a little bit of a state change for this person, and then the balloon's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then finally it's like about this big, you know. And so then this person gets a thumbtack that was from the message board. It comes over like this to this person. And then, of course, now this person who sort of was a bit upset, they see this person with the balloon, it's really big, they've got the pin, you know, and this person goes, no, get away, get away. So then this person just chases this person like, it's like around like this, and all of a sudden, you know, it's going, you know, and there's this sort of relief and release of energy. So, as we're talking about this, what I'd like for you to really, as a Phoenix practitioner, get the idea of is that things can be put in terms of something else, and that the most important thing is that you're employing a intervention by using the senses to change some state from what it was. So one thing that we have said in this class is that the resource state has to be large enough to collapse any stuck state. Stuck states all would have occurred because there was a sensory system deletion. So persons who listen can visualize seeing themselves can often have had things stored in vision that was less than friendly. So when I was at the University of Utah, one of the professors had lost quite a bit of hearing from one ear, but the other ear was like fairly good. I said, well, when did this occur? And the professor said, oh, well, it's probably been maybe 7 years. And I said, oh. I said, was there something that happened significantly for you 7 years ago? And the person said, yes. I said, well, what's that? And the person said, well, you know, my wife passed away. I said, oh. I said, was that easy? And the person said, no, not really. I said, well, how did you hear that? And the person said, over the phone. I said, oh. I said, so what ear do you put to your phone? Or what ear did you put to the phone? The person said, oh, put my right ear. And I said, so, and the right ear has less than been able to hear? The person said, that's right. I said, I wonder, is it possible that there was something that you heard over the phone that you didn't really want to hear? The person went, yeah. I said, was there something that you heard wasn't easy to get over for a while? The person said, yeah. I said, did you hear that in your head and it caused you not to feel so comfortable? The person said, yeah. I said, have you heard it much since? And the person said, no. So you can probably get a little bit of an idea of sort of what happened. This person's brain, simply because of an overload of that sense, there was a sensory system deletion, and it's so incredible that it's possible that we can have a psychological deafness, a psychological blindness, and though something can be present, persons can be acting as if it's not present at all. So we're talking about submodality interventions, and the submodality of how associated someone is in their own self versus dissociated, this sort of thing. One day, this family the mother called me on the phone, and she said, well, our son is an addict. I said, oh. They said, yes, and it's a bit unusual, but he's addicted to petrol. I said, addicted to petrol? And he said, yes. I said, well, wow. And yes, he's addicted to petrol. I said, well, what do you mean he's addicted to petrol? He said, yeah, like, he sniffs it all the time, loves to sniff that stuff. I said, oh, wow. And they said, well, is it possible for him to be helped? And I said, absolutely. And they said, well, what should we do? And I said, well, it more than likely would require most of the family members that can get here to come in when I see your son. And they thought, oh, all right. Bit of a pause, but they thought, oh, that sounds a bit strange. But anyway, so finally they all arrive, and Roger's the last person to come in through the door, you know, when they're all seated. And Roger sort of comes in a bit swaggering, you know, like this. Because they were all seated, and Roger's coming in and he's about to seat himself, and as he's about to seat himself, I said, oh. I said, so Roger, I said, what kind of petrol do you like? You know, and the family sort of had a little chuckle, right? They thought that was a bit funny, and then Roger thought that was funny too. Nobody had ever sort of talked to him like that, like it could be sort of one sort that he liked more than another, you know. But so now what did I do, which I heard over the phone was like a grave error that everybody was making around this person. What did I do by asking this question?
Brought it out into the open.
Yes, what else? I said, what kind of petrol do you like?
Validated.
Yes, piqued his interest, yes. Validated?
Yeah, validated.
Yes, validated something, yes. What? Everyone had related. Go ahead, Bob.
You gave him a choice.
Yes, I made out like he has choice, right? Because I said, because some he likes more than others, right? So what is this?
Make him consciousness.
Make him conscious, that's right, of something. What, Dennis?
Conscious choice and to make him
Right
conscious in doing something.
Exactly,
Not
excellent.
just follow some path, but think about what he is doing.
Okay, good. So when I said to Roger, I said, what kind of petrol do you like? What Bob said is that what I had done when I spoke this was I gave this person choice. I actually, the presupposition of what I had said was as if this person does have choice. Okay. So up to this point, everybody's related to Roger like Roger doesn't have any choice. Right. They've all called him an addict and he doesn't and can't and this sort of thing. And the very first question I ask him, you know, is what kind of petrol does he like? You know, and then before he could answer that, he was chuckling a little bit, and they all chuckled a little bit, you know. And I said, well, you probably can really discern the difference between one kind and another. And of course, they all smiled again. And I'm actually just simply undoing some things for this person's unconscious mind because they always have been related to like as if they didn't have any choice about this. And now here I am relating to them, and I'm bringing out that it's possible that this person does have choice about things. Not only that, but they have a very fine ability to have a great choice about things, and they can distinguish from one sort of petrol to another. Your submodality intervention here was a way that somebody had related to another, and they related to this person as if they hadn't had choice, and that caused this person to be more dissociated with everything that they had said. And what I did was cause the person to feel more associated again in their life and as a being. And then I quickly caused them to become aware that this was just something that was a behaviour, and start to put it in past tense, which nobody was astute with their verb tense and their behavioural changes. And, well, this was something which was a behaviour in the past, you know, that one can have related to as if they other than had choice, you know. And we keep the person's identity pristine whilst we can talk about a behaviour. So everybody had related this person as if the behaviour was their identity, and that's untrue. There is no such thing as an addict. There is addictive behaviour, but there is no such thing as an addict. That's a very new word, and new words we might not have a feeling for much, right? But old words we definitely have a feeling for, and no matter what, if somebody was at a 12-step program, you know, and they said, my name is Happy Face, you know, and I'm the adult child of a recovering idiot, you know. Now everybody would laugh friggin' hard at that, you know, and they would be unaccepting of this, right? Everybody would be present, they would be saying, no, 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 there is no such thing as an idiot. It's not true, you could not be an idiot, no. But people are making the same error by calling themselves an addict. Now, addict is a new word. The old words we have a feeling much more for, but newer words, you know, people have been started to be called addicts, and there's no such thing really. There is addictive behaviour, and there is a person, and that behaviour could have been way less than excellent, but there is a person, and the person's identity is pristine. So we should do what we can always to keep identity pristine whilst we talk about behaviour. We need to associate somebody, sometimes draw them towards something, or dissociate sometimes from some phenomena. When you, and these are all called submodality interventions. So let's see now, if that would be okay, because it'll take 5 minutes, could we have somebody who would love, we can have a volunteer, and we might turn the camera off until we just set this up in a second, but I just will let everybody know what we're about to do. What we'll do, and then we'll turn the camera off and we'll set this up so that we're not wasting any, we're making sure we're keeping with the time we have. So what I'm going to ask is for someone to come up and they'll volunteer. We'll put you in a very nice somnambulistic trance, which this trance can be applied to anything that you would do resourcefully later on, which can be very wonderful. And then what we will do in 5 minutes is, and this is what I'll ask you, if you have a food or something which you would love to eat less of, and you'd like to eat less of this food for the next 7 days. So if there's something that you do that you'd love to simply do less of, or there's something you'd like to do more of, or there could be something that you'd just simply like to completely put it out of your mind more, so that you just do much less of this. Has anybody got something that they would love to work with on this level? Yes?
Can I inquire, is like physical pain, could I focus less on it?
Yes, but let's see, is there something that you're consuming at the moment which you just feel that you'd like to consume less of? No? Okay. Yes, okay, yeah, right. Let's see. Okay, what about something where it could be a memory, but it's something that could have plagued you a little bit and just would love to feel better about this memory? Yes? You got something like that? Okay, great. Okay, so come on out here, Lily. Now we'll turn the camera off and we'll set Lily up, and then we'll turn it back on as soon as Lily's set up. It'll just take 5 minutes. Okay, so now we have Lily Lambert here, and so what we're going to do with this submodality intervention, we're going to just change a few things around inside, and we'll ask Lily to allow her eyes to close. Okay, good. And then we're going to be closed for about 5 minutes, and it'll be amazing because a little time will pass, but it'll just seem like a few minutes really transpired, that's all. And then what I'm going to ask you to do, Lily, is to allow your hand to raise and hold your hand up like this, that's good. And then just in the time, and ever so gently, quietly and slowly, your hand is going to drift back down toward your lap where it was. And at every little distance that your hand travels, that you're feeling yourself relaxing. Now Lily's going to know that when I'm communicating to all of us, and then when I'm communicating something to her. And then basically what we've done is we've set up what's called a leverage induction. And this is sort of a technique, a hypnotic technique of creating a beautiful trance-like state where it's possible for us to do some work inside beautifully. And then the brain also has the opportunity to learn the skill and the technique that we are going to apply in a moment. And it's going to be able to do this whenever it would love to. And so that's so beautiful, because as our brain has learned some trick, it naturally just gravitates toward this, and we really hardly even have to think about it at all. I'm going to ask Lily that this is a beautiful, relaxed state that she can access whenever she would enjoy this beautiful state. And that when she wakes from this in a little while, she'll have this beautiful, resourceful feeling inside. And there'll be a lengthening of the inspiration through her nose. With every breath in, and with every breath out, relaxing more. With every breath out. What a beautiful thing it is to listen and hear the sounds of nature. The sound of running water. Relaxing the breath. Beautiful. And what I'm going to ask Lily to do now, there's some beautiful place that she's been. We're just going to hold her hand up to about here. And then in the time that it takes, ever so gently for your hand to ever so float back down where it was, then you'll have a beautiful scene. You could be at the beach somewhere. You can imagine walking, perhaps in nature. You can feel the wind a little. And perhaps you can even hear some sounds there. It's so beautiful that you can turn the volume up of the sounds of nature inside, and it's so beautiful. And now we have the ability to be able to do this in our life. And you remember how beautiful it is, the sound of running water inside your mind. It's really beautiful. And relaxing. And that's so beautiful also to have the ability to adjust the brightness of things that we can see. Sometimes some things even could be little fluorescence. And sometimes you can even notice the smallest thing, like even small, something like a dewdrop in a cobweb. And you can even see things like the sun scintillating on this. So beautiful to observe the smallest things. And also to have the ability to zoom out and zoom in and have access to this aspect of ourselves good. And so what we're going to say is that this is sort of a resourceful state, and I'm going to connect with you just like this, and this is whenever I'm touching this like this, you're going to be reminded of this beautiful resourceful state. And that's so amazing actually that it's possible for you in the days to come. Sometimes your hand will come down here and you'll just connect like this, and you'll be reminded of this very beautiful resourceful state that can collapse anything into this. And now what we're going to call this your resource state. And so now what I'm going to ask you to do, Lily, is to go back till yesterday or the day before and think of something just seemingly insignificant. It doesn't have to be anything. And just something insignificant, anything at all. And just nod your head as you're thinking of something. You've come to something. It could be anything at all. Yes, okay, good. We're just thinking of that, just simply we're going to use this as a breaker state. That's all. Okay? So you'll remember whatever that was that you saw or felt, heard yesterday. And we're just going to use that memory as a breaker state between things we do here, that's all. Alright. And then when we come back and we connect with this, yes? Okay, wonderful. All right. So now we have a most amazing resource state here. We could throw a little colour into that maybe, perhaps, yes? And then what about a little fragrance? Let's put some fragrance in there. Some fragrance. It could be a nice flowering fragrance. Beautiful, wonderful. Let's saturate ourselves with this, and as we peak like this, excellent. Good. Okay. So now, one more thing just to really make this really quite powerful. You're going to remember some moment in the past where someone's really giving you the most amazing gift, you know, and they gave you this great present, and you went, oh my God, thank you so much, and you thought so nicely about this, and you'll shake my hand as you remember being given this gift. Shake my hand as you remember being given this gift. Thank you. Oh my God, you remember saying thank you for a job well done, something good. Okay, so now we really have a few things really stored there that's really quite amazing. This is called chaining. So we've chained a few experiences and we've anchored it over here like this. Excellent. Okay, so now what I'd like you to do is to go back to that moment yesterday and that you'll remember that sort of a breaker state. We'll just remember that as a breaker state. Yes? And it sort of clears whatever was on the screen you remember simply that happened yesterday. Okay. So now what I'd like you to do is, if that would be all right with you, is to go back to some moment where you might have been a little bit perturbed about something that occurred. And now when you look at this, you're going to have a little bit of a distance and you're just going to simply just observe a little bit this person. And as you're observing this person, or this situation, allow your head to nod as you're observing the person. It could be anybody, and the brain is going to learn how to do this in many ways. So you can think of something, some memory that you'd love to change, and yes, okay. Alright, so now what I'd like you to do is you're seeing this person, run a little circus music in the background. Good. That's very wonderful. And now what I'd like you to do is, now you can hear the person and they are really going to town, and accentuate their going to town. And now put a big clown nose on their face. Boop, like this, you see them going to town, and there's this big clown nose on their face. That's wonderful. Excellent. Good. It's so amazing that it's possible that, as it is, that we can change the things that we have seen. And this is called like a submodality intervention, and the brain can learn how to do this whenever it would love to do this. And what I'd love for you to do now is think of something which you sort of felt a little bit of intrepidation about, but it's something you'd love to feel resourceful about. It could be something that you're going to do, something that you've been planning perhaps, or something so simply that's been something that's happening, and you just simply would have to have a resourceful feeling about that. So when you have something which hasn't felt as good as you would enjoy it to, nod your head. Yes? Okay, so we're going to put this over here. Okay, so can you feel a few things that comes up that's sort of about this, you know, whatever this is, yes. Yes, okay, right. And now also too, there could be some other things in your physiology and even voice or face and other things, and you see these things, yes, okay, good. Alright, excellent, okay. And so now go back to think about whatever it was that happened yesterday, that's the breaker state. And you're thinking about this, and as you're thinking about this, yes, okay, wonderful, alright. And so, sometimes in the past, there's been this that sort of occurred. Yes. And so now, you know, there have been moments when that has occurred, and now this is going to be there. Wonderful. Good. Would it be really lovely to imagine some moment which is sort of a generic sort of a situation in the future where there could have been some of that, and now there's this. So now you might be surprised actually that there can have been something. Now I'm just going to say, try to get some of this back, try to get it back. What happens when you try to get it back? Come on, try hard to get this back. Alright. Okay. Okay. So now what I'd love you to do is I'm going to be counting backwards from 10. you know. And when I get to 1, just a little time will pass, you know, and then you'll be thinking that you'd love to even sink deeper into this state, and it just will be beautiful, and the distance that it takes for your hand to ever so gently float back down towards your knee, to be someplace that's in nature where you've been before, in some beautiful place. Beautiful, yes. And then when you wake from this, 10, 9, you're going to feel a beautiful sense of resourcefulness, like you've been on vacation, and you just come back to the city, and you're feeling so charged, very charged. 9, 8, and a very amazing thing that you'll have forgotten the things you love to forget. Remember the things you love to remember. 7, 6, and when I get to 1, a little time will pass. 5, relaxing more. 4, when I get to 1, a little time will pass, and then I'll clap my hands, and things will be sped up again, and you'll have forgotten everything you'd love to forget, and you'll have this beautiful, resourceful feeling inside. 3, 2, 1. Oh, right, let's speed up the little things here. We'll get things going just a little bit again. Okay. All right, we'll turn off the camera for a second, and then we'll come back and we'll talk for 5 minutes. We'll wrap this up.
We're back on.
Okay, so we're back on. We have 5 minutes, and I would really love to cap a couple of things that we've talked about here, that we've gone over. First of all, we all witnessed a little piece of behavioural change work occur just then. There's so much skill that's possible for someone to be learned on this level, and that you become so skillful, matter of fact, that the kids' legs all start jerking and moving actually as a result of your having language things. And you become aware of how to go about using language to embed commands and cause things to occur. And so that's very important, because your session with your person, as you sit with them, this is the time that one can be healed and feel healed. So when they get up from the chair, a person feels, wow, I've really got to the bottom of things, you know, and they say, thank you, my God. You know, I hardly ever got to the bottom of things before, but I really feel I have, you know, and there's a great relief and everything. Your submodality intervention is you're doing what you can to harness usefulness of the sensory motor complex in a way the person remains integrated and congruent and associated, versus fragmented, incongruent and dissociated. And we apply the senses in the body in a way that a person can have new choice. The body can perceive, the body is run through this new program, and as the body is run through and has been run through this new program, the mind then can conceive new possibility with whatever this was. So this is called submodality interventions. There's a great amount and body of work. There's a technician's manual, a practitioner's manual, and a master track manual, which was developed perhaps over 20 years, and just I'll show people that this is one of the manuals that we're talking about, and there's such an enormous amount of information in this, but you can see that how the senses are sort of sequenced, you know, is going to have an outcome. It's just like dialing a number or something, you know, you're going to get a certain sort of a response. This there's such great information in this manual. We always are working towards eliciting a behavioural manifestation of an internal response, and so we're always checking to sense, because we had some great beamers from Lily, didn't we? So when we fired off the resource state, we could see the behavioural manifestation of this internal response really was on her face and her body, and then as we accessed the stuck state and that, we could also see a beam that whatever that was seemed to be past at all. And you're always continuously sort of about the response to the communication. In